Hi, I'm Ruben, and I'm here today to introduce to you an exciting and versatile amp that I both built and designed back in 2018. So I've been playing bass and guitar for over 45 years and searching for the ultimate tone at the same time. I've owned amps such as Fender Blackfaces, Marshall amps, Ampegs, Aeroline, and Mesa Boogie. Some of these amps were considered to be standard for their time and for their genres. Each one of them had its own unique tone, but none of them had more than one tone. I was in search of something that maybe could perhaps give me more than just one tone. So having studied electronics in high school and college, I had developed a strong enough foundation of electronic circuits to kind of understand what I'm looking at. So I decided that I would look at some of the schematics online for some of these old amps and see what I could see about these. I was wondering if there's any way that I could marry up the two and create an amp that does just more than one thing. So to me, I found that the single-ended amps, they sounded better, and there's a reason for that, because they're much more simple than the other types of designs and amp. The only problem with single-ended amps was that they're low wattage. So I wanted something louder. So I had to scour the internet in search of the loudest single-ended circuit I could possibly find. As luck had it, I found an obscure circuit that was never put into production. Its front end was a little too simple for my liking, so I thought to myself, why not try to use a Fender front end instead? I did, and it worked. So the original single-ended circuit had some pretty cool features about it. One of the features was that it had a circuit that resembled an old Vox amp. In addition to that, I thought, why not use the same mod that was used in the Layla sessions for Duane Allman and Eric Clapton? So for the speaker design, I used old Fender design, and I used some special materials because I know how resonance can have a great effect on the tone. So when I plugged in my creation, it was like magic. I had this amp that was clean, it had a lot of growl, it has throaty, and it could get down and dirty. When I plugged my bass into it, I was so surprised because it sounded very similar to my Ampeg B15 as well. So after having used this amp for the last 7 years in my recordings, I figured the time was right to share this little jewel with other tone aficionados. So here it is, the Vibroelectric Super Single-Ended 12W amp. Hope you like it. So here's what it sounds like. So for the guitar, I'm using a Strat, and I'm using it in the neck position. And the amp is right now just set up for its basic position, its standard Fender type sound position. So here's what it sounds like. I'm just going to play some chords so you... So that's your basic clean sound for this amp. So I changed the voicing of the amp. On this playing, I'm going to play roughly the same stuff, and you're going to hear a slight difference in the character of the amp itself. Nothing has changed except one of the switches. So here it goes. And you can hear the clean sound of this one. So now what I did, all I did was turn up the gain about 3/4 of the way. So now it's a little dirty, not quite totally dirty. Nothing changes. It's back into the standard Fender position, and here's what she sounds like. More dirt. It's very responsive to how hard you obviously hit the strings on nice and clean, so you can hear that the distortion is starting to come in. So with this sound, all I did was flick the switch. I didn't change any of the tone controls whatsoever. So the character of the amp has changed. This holds a whole different sound. Same everything, same guitar setting, same whole 9 yards. And here's what it sounds like. Remember, there's no change in gain at this point right now. This is the same settings as the other sound was, except I changed the character of the amp. So now what I've done was I've done this is a Layla Sessions mod that I was telling you about. Basically, it's just taking the tone stack out of the circuit and it changes everything. So here's what that sounds like. And right, I'm still in the bridge position on the guitar. So you can hear that. So here's what this thing sounds like with the tone stack removed, but with the alternate amp voicing. So here it goes. That sound. I just want to do a quick, I'm going to move this thing into the bridge position so you can hear it in a rock context. So here's what it sounds like with a bridge and a humbucker. So you get to hear, this is an alternate sound on the Strat, so you can hear what this thing sounds like in bridge position as well. So this amp can, as I told you earlier, this amp can also be used for a bass guitar. So what I've done is I've swapped out the cabinet. I'm using an Eden EX 100 with this thing, and I'm using a Sennheiser 421 on this. Everything is flat. So right now what you're going to hear is just going to be the neck pickup on the bass guitar. So here's what it sounds like. So there you go. You hear that deep sound. Now I'm going to put the bass guitar in the middle position to where both pickups. So here's what it sounds like with both pickups. Okay, and now I'm going to put it in the bridge position. So here's what this sounds like in the bridge position. So now you get to, this is what this thing sounds like with a jazz bass, or any bass for that matter, in the neck position, in the both positions, and in the bridge position. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's what you have. This is the super single-ended 12W Vibroelectric. So I'm going to just quickly go through the controls on this and tell you what's going on. There's only one input on this. I like simplicity. You don't need to have more than one in a studio. It's just one. So these obviously could be made into more than one if you'd like to have more than one, but I prefer one. It just keeps everything really simple. So this first switch over here, it's called TS. This was the tone stack switch that I used for the very dirtiest sound that you heard. This is removing the bass, the mid, and the treble. That's what this switch takes out, and it allows the signal to pass straight through the tube without any kind of sucking out of the tone stack. So that's why it has a lot more distortion. Whatever your guitar really sounds like, the guitar itself is going to shine through when you have this switch engaged, because there's not going to be any kind of tone altering with the tone controls. The second switch is a bass switch. This is a switch that gives the amp a lot more bass character to it. I did not use these in the guitar because it has plenty of bass without it. I did switch it on when I used when I set it up for the bass, because I noticed that it sounded more like an Ampeg when I did that. So I like to use this bass switch for the bass guitar in the up position, and I also like to use the tone stack in for the bass, obviously, because you don't want to have too much distortion. You want to have some control over your tone. So when the bass switch is in the up position, gives it significantly more bass. You can use this with a guitar as well. So if you use a guitar that's out of phase, purposely put out of phase, that has very little bass, when you switch this switch in, it'll make your guitar sound much fuller. I don't use it with guitar, but I definitely do use it with bass. This one here, this one labeled T, I call it T for treble, but really this is the one that changes the voicing altogether. It makes the amp sound completely different. So this is that Vox modification that I was telling you about. This switch right now in the down position, it's set up like a Fender, but when I set it up in this position, it sets up the circuit to sound more like a Vox, and you could hear the difference between the two amps when I demoed that for you. So this amp has a master gain in it, and obviously a gain, a treble, a mid, and a bass, and it's very responsive, when you turn up the gain all the way, and you can play at lower volumes. However, I found that being in a studio, and if you want to have the true distortion of a single-ended amp, then I usually will use this in the all the way up position, and if it's not enough distortion, I'll take the tone stack out. There's many kind of options that you can do with this, but pretty much that's how this amp operates. So here's what's on the back side of the amp. You can see kind of what's in the amp. So I'm going to start from over on this side over here. It's just a 12AX7, only one. If you wanted another channel, I'd have to have two of these. That's not a big deal to do. And then we have the output tubes. Notice that there are two output tubes. This is what's one of the differences between this amp and other single-ended amps. Most other single amps only have one of these. They don't have two of these. And because it has two of these, and they're wired in the unorthodox configuration that I talked about a little bit earlier, that forces me then to have two of these tubes over here. One of them is covered by this fan over here, but these two are the rectifier tubes. Each one of these two tubes has its own rectifier tube. So if I really want to make this a true 5-watt amp, because that's basically what it is, it's a 5-watt amp times 2, I would just pull the tube out. I can pull the tube out. It'll still work because of the nature of how this thing is wired. It'll still work, but it'll be a true 5-watt amp. It'll be more like a Vibroelectric, but with the two tubes in it, it's significantly louder. And in this case, 5 plus 5 does not equal 10. It adds up to just a little bit more than 10. I'm going to guess somewhere in that 12 to 15 watt range. But that's what I installed this fan just in case if you're using this thing for long periods of time in the studio or live, you're going to probably want to have the fan. It just draws the heat away from the transformer. And remember that single-ended means that the transformer is working at 100% all the time, regardless of how loud you're playing this thing. So this is just a safety feature of this thing. I don't use it because I don't play this thing very long, but it's just something that's nice to have. Any 12-volt power supply will drive this fan, and it really works well. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed what you heard of this amp. It's only the tip of the iceberg. With a different guitar, this thing can do many different things. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at my email address, which is posted below. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.